Ready?
Yes,
Y'all
ma'am.
ready? Everybody
That's a
ready?
good benefit for people.
Yes.
How are you? I think it's
Now call meeting of the Winterville Town Council to order. Councilman Moore, will you give us an invocation?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this wonderful day. We thank you for this opportunity to be a vessel for you to serve this wonderful community, the town that we consider as Winterville, and we want to be a good steward for you, Lord, and let your will be done in our life, that you will be pleased of what we do, say, or act. And the results, you already know, because you're Alpha and Omega, you're the beginning and the end. So you already know what's going to happen. So we're just going through. We're just going to believe that we can do all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do welcome each of you to our third budget session meeting, work session meeting, here on Thursday, May 28, 2026, at 6 p.m. We do appreciate those of you that are here and have been here with us for these three sessions. We also appreciate our citizens that have attended and the ones that are watching on video, whether you're watching later or if you're watching now. We will have roll call.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll start with Councilwoman Hawkins,
Present.
Councilman Moy,
Present.
Councilwoman Smith,
present.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson,
Present.
and previously announced absence were going to be Mayor Hines as well as Councilwoman Dr. Brandy Harrell.
All right, we will now, we got the agenda in our hands. We've all had a chance to look at it.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
It's been moved and properly approved that we approve the agenda. All in favor? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed, same sign. Unanimous vote. The item for discussion is our fiscal year budget. So,
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Tonight we have before you continuation from the previous work sessions. We are able to say that we do have a balanced budget as of today, and we have made changes. I'll briefly walk you through that. As you may recall, previous direction from council was to use fund balance and retained earnings to work to balance the budget, and as you know, we had a pretty significant deficit. We also made a few other changes, and I'll walk you through that as we go through. Mostly beginning with in order to balance the budget, we reduced the COLA for employees to 3%, and we included an average for merit pay of 1.25 to 2.25. So that will be an average merit increase. So employees will still have both of those opportunities for raises next fiscal year. With that being said, to balance the budget, start with the general fund, we had to use an appropriation of $2,350,000 of fund balance. As you may recall, for those in the public that may be listening, that's our rainy day fund or savings. That was to be removed from our current savings, and was, just want to point out a couple of questions have been asked by council about, how we might close out this year and what that looks like. There's always gonna be some funds that aren't expended that roll back into fund balance. It's a little early to tell right now exactly what that may or may not be. Sometimes we don't get all the invoices in until August, but it's not uncommon for that number to be pretty substantial. And so it's a little too early to tell how much will go back into fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, but there, as it stands right now, it looks like there will be some going back into the fund. So it will net out some of that usage. And, you know, ideally, we all know we don't want to overuse fund balance as a tool for managing operating expenditures. We've typically, historically used them for one-time expenditures, but this year's situation is a little bit different. Recreation fund has been balanced as well. That included an increase in the transfer from the general fund. We have a moving to our electric fund. That was balanced with retained earnings of $1,351,000. Our water fund was the one, you may recall, we had a bigger deficit there than as far as percentage-wise than any other fund. And so we knew coming in that the deficit was larger than the amount of retained earnings available to support the fund. So we went in and looked and worked with Mr. McGuffin, made some more additional cuts to the fund, looked at how much fund balance we could use. Some of the fund balance, or retained earnings, excuse me, in the water fund is reserved for capital outlay. But essentially, we cut everything to a bare minimum. It is a risky proposition with the cuts that we made. It does not leave the town any room for emergencies, things of that nature. So it is bare bones at best. It is using essentially all the fund balance that we can that's not reserved. And so that amount of fund balance is $515,841 that'll be used to balance the fund. The sewer fund was not in quite such bad shape. That was balanced with the retained earnings of $257,707. Moving on to stormwater. The stormwater fund was balanced with a contribution from retained earnings of $492,623. So as you can see, each fund was balanced with retained earnings or fund balance as directed by council. There were additional cuts that had to be made in order to keep it solvent and sufficient. And so that's what you have before you tonight.
So even with increasing the sewer rate to $8.20, that's not enough to balance that fund?
No, ma'am, because that $820 was just enough to cover the debt service payment. So we had the new debt service payment, and we only raised it enough to actually cover the payment.
I will say, I see, and again, we don't have to do what other people do, but other municipalities that surround us are having continual rate increases. One in their water is increasing by 3.7% for this budget year. Sewer 3.9%, gas 4%, and electric 1.9%. And that's just one example, and nobody wants, we are going to have to look at maybe some increases, and I pay just as much as anybody else, but we're going to run out of reserve in general at some point. And so that's something that we really need to consider.
Right, and I think a long-term strategy for rate increases so that, you know, people and know how to plan. It's not just, you know, a one-time big hit like was discussed. I mean, I think pretty much everybody is kind of on board with a more incremental approach and a more long-term approach. That doesn't get us out of the woods really quick. However, it doesn't create as much of a burden on the citizens having to come up with gigantic rate increases in the very near future.
Any other questions?
So yes, I have a few. So when you speak of balancing the budget with the reserves or with monies that were in savings, can you make a distinction between the unassigned monies that were at 8 million and monies in savings and reserves? Please make a distinction for myself
Sure.
as well as the citizens.
Yes, that's a good question. Essentially, by general statute, there are certain items that have to be reserved, such as Powell bill funds is a good example. So any Powell bill funds, while that's it's a transportation module, and so when we look at the general fund balance, the Powell bill funds roll into that. So when you look at the financial statements, you'll see reserve. One of those items in the reserve is Powell bill funds. So anything that's left over in
I'm sorry, are you saying power bill fund?
Powell bill, it's
Powell,
Powell, Powell.
Powell,
Mhm.
okay.
So the Powell bill is a grant that's received from the state based on motor fuel tax, and it's distributed to each town based on population and road miles, how many road miles we have within the town. And that money is earmarked for transportation purposes. So anything that's earmarked. You also have items like, an example, any of our purchase orders or encumbrances that have been established prior to year end, those funds would be considered reserved. In other words, if we entered into an agreement with a contractor, or say HVAC unit went out, we issued a PO to get the unit fixed, and June 30 gets here, well, the work hasn't been done yet, but we've issued a PO. So that money is always set aside and reserved. And so you'll see at the very first budget amendment of each year, you'll always see us include a budget amendment to cover the POs and encumbrances from the prior year. And that's a annual process where we see how much was issued at the end as of June 30th, and we roll that into the budget for the first budget amendment of the year. But you'll see, basically, that's what creates the reserves. Also, if, for example, the system development fees are in our enterprise funds of the water and sewer, we've been collecting those. Those funds are reserved for capital projects. And so when we look at how much fund balance we use, we couldn't touch the money that was collected for capital outlay out of our fund balance, because it was established by the system development fees, which are reserved.
So with that being said, when we speak of we're like, right, we don't have anything else, we utilized everything else. Can you please speak to an unassigned fund that is $8 million? So if we have unassigned funds of $8 million, we are not at the brink, like we are not right there. Am I correct in saying that? Because I want us to be clear when we're communicating, while that is a different category, the town is not like spent their last dime balancing the budget.
Sure. I think what's concerning this year is the rate that we're having to use it in each fund. You are correct that the 8 million is there, it is available to be used. I think one thing that, from a staff perspective, is you always want to use that for one-time purchases and not balance the budget for standard operating costs. And so we're in a situation now where we're starting to use it to cover our operating costs. And so that's where it starts to get a little concerning. We do still have a good fund balance. It is not in the general fund. The water fund is a different story, and some of our utilities are starting to dwindle as well. I think from a staff perspective, and the reason we're starting to look at rate increases is because of the rate at which we're using it and the rate at which expenditures are going up, just in general as far as inflation and how much it's gone up over time as well.
So, does anybody recall last year from fund balance, did we use, was it 1.8 million or something like that? And if you don't know off the top, but I remember it being.
I think I've got it right here. This is little writing, and I'm getting old, so my vision is not what it used to be, but just one second. Yes, ma'am, it was, so the original budget last year we balanced with 1,886,000.
So, for 25, 26, and now 26, 27, I'm doing fast math, but that, 3, 4, is over $4 million in just 2 years that we've taken from general fund balance. And at that rate, we would deplete it very quickly, and we would no longer have at least the minimum that we're required to have on reserve in case of catastrophe or emergency.
The town has adopted a 25% minimum. That was established many, many years ago, but that is only in the general fund. That does not apply to the enterprise funds.
But these amounts were taken from general fund, so we're at
That's correct.
4.1 million in 2 years.
But, in looking at that, I asked the Assistant Town Manager Bowers earlier, I was concerned about how much money we turned back in. You know, at the end of the year, that's the way I look at it. I know that that's simplistic, and he was saying it was over $1 million that we turned back in at the end of the year. So
Last year.
at the end of the fiscal year, I know it takes about till October or so, somewhere in there for us to balance out. So, that's something we need to look at too, the fact that we did, we did budget more than what we needed.
That's correct. There will be some, barring some extenuating circumstance or some, really bad situation, there should be some money that goes back into fund balance and as of June 30th, this year. What that number is yet, it's just too early to tell.
Not saying that I'm justifying us each year, our budget being over, but at least we know that all that we take out, some of it will go back in, and plus the fact that we are looking at a workshop on our rates this year too. So hopefully next year, everything will be a little bit better for us if we do rate adjustments and, of course, with the return on our money. Any other discussion?
Yes, so I do. I have a lot of discussion. So we went from, and I hope I'm safe to say that, it's 6:20, so yes, I do have more discussion where we went from over $10 million, I'm going to say deficit because it was, or expenses needed, because it was in the red, it was not balanced. And then in a few days, we went to 5 million, and then now in a few days, it's balanced. So my question is, us looking carefully and intricately in, what was lined items, what were the expenses, what were such needs that it was overages of 10 million, and now it's at I guess, a balanced, amount or feasible. Second, when we look at the budget and it is outlined in a summary, we get this, but how do we, and Mayor Pro Tem Robertson said that we are having an upcoming workshop, which we still need to date, but I thought that that was about policies as opposed to rates. I'm interested in talking about rates, but I'm also interested in how we look at a budget for parks and recreation that's over 1 million, close to $2 million, and what is the concentration in parks and recreation, and how is and where is it equitable and expansive to include more than, the majority is baseball and t-ball and football and things of this nature, but we have youth and young adults that are interested in more things than that. So how do we sit and not feel in a personal manner, but in a way to say, hey, where are, all of these expenses are, put into the fund and taxpayers and reserves and people are paying for this. How do we explain that explicitly? And when do we do that? And it is my hopes that we do that we have that opportunity during the workshop, and that it is a public meeting. Also, items, things that have been purchased, and we have loans and more police cars. And my question before was, how long did we have patrol cars before we purchased more, and were they at the absolute level to where we needed to get new? All of these expenses when we have townspeople walking in the street and need town-based transportation. So instead of looking at the balance that have been presented as, the budget is balanced now, we just don't have any questions. I have more questions. And that is what this budget meeting is about. When we had a sewer project, and now we're gonna have an increase, and we're looking to increasing the water portion of our utility bill, perhaps the next budget. We need to look at intricate ways as why is this happening, and how are we just making it in to balance the budget. So that is what I have to say to start. And so my question is, when we have the workshop, are we gonna be speaking in terms of, close to 2 million for parks and recreation? And when I look at the Hillcrest Park, it's in need of repair. So this is my concern, and this is my responsibility and my role as a council person to speak on behalf of all of the citizens. So that is my first question. How do we narrow down intricately where these costs are? How do we justify these costs? And then say, we're at the brink of a budget. Are all of these things urgent? Are all of these things needed? I understand operations, because operations is essential, but a lot of these things were not urgent and essential in my perspective. That might not be fact, but we were not brought any evidence of where are cars broken down, or how do we justify these things and just say, okay, I make a motion and we pass it. This is people's money, that we were left to be in charge of, and whether, I don't know if people take it offense or personal or not, that's not my concern. My concern is to speak on behalf of people who have entrusted me. So is the workshop going to intricately, outline what these expenses are and why each department is at this level? Who can answer that?
I mean, I can speak to the budget process as a whole. The budget process starts in like February. And so what we do is begin with establishing where we are, major milestones that are going to affect the town in the next fiscal year. And we present that to council. We normally have that meeting in late January, early February. We also then we'll go into what we have, our revenue updates. It kind of explains where we are with revenues and how they're growing, how they, if they're staying the same, what percentage that is. And most of our stuff grows about 1%, so we don't get a lot of growth. When you think about, we're a growing town and things are expensive, but 1 to 2% when inflation is much higher than that is a deficit right out of the gate. But that mostly affects, our operating expenditures. That's going to be our fuel, our utilities. Insurance has gone up tremendously over the last few years because of, rate increases. So your general operating expenditures have gone up over the years while our rates have stayed the same, except for in a few areas. And we've addressed those individually, those being sanitation and sewer and those funds. And then we've also addressed the power cost adjustment when we had that one-time blip in electric. So we're looking at, this process where, what was presented was a $10 million deficit. And so that was a reflection of the needs from department heads as well as any goals or objectives that council had presented that got put in the budget so we could establish a baseline of where we are to meet what it is we want to. If we had the ability to go out and get all this work done, this is where that 10 million came from. And so the second round, where we dropped to the 5 million, was a situation where reviews were done. Each department head was requested to make cuts in their department. They know their departments intricately. They work in it every day. They know where expenditures are. They know what may come by the end of the year, or what may not come. Prime example of that would be some of the vacancies that were discussed earlier. We know we're not going to spend those funds in certain areas. All that to say, the second iteration or the second 5 million that we reached was a situation of after department heads had made those cuts in areas they felt like it was appropriate. And so the next round was where we are tonight, which is a balanced budget. And to balance, a $5 million swing, we looked at obviously debt financing, and we financed quite a few things, a little bit over $2 million. And we also cut additional items such as pay raises, and then again in the water fund, we basically cut everything but the bare minimum. I mean, there's no capital projects in there at all. There's only $25,000 in there for emergencies. So, we did that last iteration is a fine-tooth review of going into each line item with the department head to review. And that's where we are. And the rest was made up with fund balance. So I hope that answers your question.
So yes, it answers it at some level, but again, are we going to have a workshop to outline intricately these expenses, what the department heads are listing or doing their decisions? Because ultimately, the council is approving these things. Now, with that being said, department heads are considered, having an expertise. However, they are human, just like we are. And who's looking at this? Like, we're supposed to know, we're supposed to be able to look at this and justify this, should a citizen have a question. So my question again is, will that workshop include any, department heads sharing with us what is, intricately within these, figures? That's my question, and it could be a yes or no, but just to let the public know and myself know, like, how does one look at this in the determinations of these costs? And again, I go back to a lot of different costs that were made. Who determines that, okay, we need this, where's documentation of this?
So as you go through the documents that are presented, so say for example, utilities, you're not gonna see each utility transaction for a specific fund. I mean, there's thousands of them. But most of the items that are gonna be kind of like where the rubber meets the road, the items that are like, not everyday items are gonna fall in your capital outlay account. And so the capital outlay account is where anything that's over $5,000 and has an extended useful life will fall into our capital outlay account. And that's a good area to review to see what capital purchases are being made. And each department has put those purchases in their notes.
The capital outlay notes
Account.
are in here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, intricate notes or like a summary or a snippet?
So
Where's that?
basically, it's gonna
Somebody
say
pointed
if,
out to me.
for example, if our public works department needed a new truck, they would, in the capital outlay, would say, F-150, $75,000, or dump truck, $250,000, something along those lines. So that information is in the budget document.
Okay, can you point out one of them to me outside of what you just said, for any other department, for Parks and Recreation, for the police department, and those needs? For example, there were several vehicles purchased with.
So let me start quickly with items that were being financed, if I may.
Sure.
And this is gonna cover a lot of our capital outlay, because the only way we could afford the capital outlay items was to finance it. In our police department, we had 2 vehicles with the upfit package that estimated to be $120,575. In our fire department, we had a new squad, a new truck, and $1,300,000. Also in the fire department, we had SCBA compressor, the air pack compressor, that mobile unit, and that was $204.
You said one vehicle for the fire department was $1 million?
That's the actual fire truck.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's
Fire
not
truck.
like a personal vehicle. Yes, ma'am. This is a full apparatus outfitted.
Okay.
And then the self-contained breathing air packs for the staff, $140,000. In public buildings, we had the police fire rescue facility roof replacement at $300,000. That facility, that roof is the life is past its useful life and it's starting to deteriorate. Public Works, we have a large dump truck for $250,000 and then a pickup truck for $75,000. In our recreation fund, we have Hillcrest Ballpark lights at $145,000, and then a park maintenance building at $200,000. In our water fund, we have
Can you say that again, what, a
a
park?
park maintenance building, maintenance, we don't have,
Where is that established, where is that? Or,
There- there's a small facility kind of in the woods at the back of the park, and it's really old and dilapidated, and this was an item that was supposed to have been built 2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago, that's an expense that came into this budget
Yes,
from
ma'am.
something from 2 or 3 years ago?
Well, it's been in the works, yes, ma'am.
So
we had to
was
get-
it in the budget last year? I mean, so it was, you needed it 2 or 3 years ago? Or
The original plan, the original plan was to build it a couple years ago, but during that process, we realized that we didn't have adequate fire protection. So during that time, we had to go back and retool, and install the water line. I guess that was done last summer. And so that was completed last summer. And so now that the water infrastructure is in place, we move forward with the building.
So the need came about 2 or 3 years ago, but now you were able to purchase the building this year or
With financing.
set aside money, finance money for, and where is that located? The park maintenance building, where is
If
that?
you're familiar with the building, the office building that's in the Winterville Recreation Park, as you walk in, it's the older brick building, kind of right, it's to your right when you walk in, but back behind that, so it's nestled in the woods back behind the playground and between there and the ball field.
And that's gonna be built, or somebody's working on to build that?
Yes, ma'am. And then we have in the water fund, we had several things, but obviously we reduced that down just to the cost share agreement for the 10-inch water line in Southbrook. That's just the first phase. That was $92,000. In the sewer fund, we had 2 items being financed, and that's the Quail Trace regionalization, as well as the Quail Trace cost share agreement for pump station capacity increase, well and force main. And that was $93,000. So both of those combined were $222,000.
So I go back to, and I thank you for your time and your professionalism and patience with trying to answer my questions. I do appreciate that. When we're talking about upgrades that are needed, I brought before the town manager, yourself, upgrades needed in the Hillcrest Park via the basketball court, via the walking track. When are we gonna when is that going to be a focus or investment made in that? Is that in this budget? How does that look? Or do we wait until you say after the budget, later on in June when money's coming? How does that work?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the purchase order has already been issued for fixing the walking trail for both parks. And so that'll happen. The money we talked about in encumbrances and purchase orders, reserving funds. And so that's what we have done. We've received the quotes, and we don't have a date yet or anything. Okay, so it's pretty soon we'll see improvements to the walking trails in both parks.
Thank you. But with regards to the basketball court, where there's a crack at the base of the basketball goal down through the court.
Yes, ma'am, we had that reviewed by the name of the company that does the surfacing, playing surfaces. They inspected the court. My understanding is it's not quite ready for improvements. It's at a point where we can make improvements, but it said it would be another couple of years before he would recommend it. He did say, that if we wanted to advance that, that was a possibility, but it was not. He did not see a safety concern at this time when he did his review.
So can you provide that to us?
Sure,
Just in
yes,
case
ma'am.
something happened to
I
someone?
believe it's been shared with Manager Parker, so she may be providing that at a later time. I know she's,
Also, I spoke to the cycle of improvement. That basketball court is overdue via the cycle of improvement. So the person who inspected that, is he in alignment with the cycle of improvement? And the reason why I'm asking and expounding on this, we're talking about monies, we're talking about the budget. So is he in disagreement that the cycle is up for improvement of the basketball court that is crumbling all around the sides?
as far as so staff has gone out and banked the sides so there's not a trip hazard. So that's one way we've addressed those concerns around the sides. As far as the playing surface itself is concerned, I mean, this was the professional that installed it, and so that was his recommendation, but we'll be glad to share that so you can read it. Basically, he said if the town, you know, had the money or wanted to do it right now immediately, we could. He wouldn't advise against it, but he also didn't see a safety concern as it presents itself today, but would recommend something within a couple of years. And that's my abbreviated version of the email.
And so I thank you, and I would highly recommend that it is updated and upgraded, because a couple of years would kind of double the cycle in which it needs to be fixed. So that is my feedback, and I would invite any other council person to go out and look at that basketball court and the perimeter of it, because that is not feasible. That is, somebody can twist their ankle. That is not okay. And I'm just speaking to my recommendation. It doesn't look safe, and it's overdue via the cycle for purchase, for upgrading it. And then again, another budget item, you mentioned 2 police cruisers or cars or at over $100,000. What was the need for those, or, because there's lots of police vehicles just parked, and then we have officers on a shift. We don't have, like, we have a shift of officers, and then we have cars just sitting. So just for me, just trying to justify that when we also had a fire department with not enough staff for the truck. I'm just, honestly, because we're talking about a budget, and that might be uncomfortable for some people, but when do we talk about it? I don't know. That's just my question.
Sure. I mean, as far as the police vehicles, I think historically they've had a rotation, but I would have to turn that over to the.
So when we talk about police vehicles, we're looking not only right now, but looking future planning. So as you know that we're understaffed as we are right now. Don't know if you're aware, but we just did 3 conditional offers on new officers, and we have some more in the works. So I'm cutting my deficit on police officers in half already. Within this year, I will be back, hopefully, full staff. As I am sitting right now, I am 1 police vehicle short, regardless of what you see over there, of actually having enough vehicles for all my guys and still having spare vehicles on the side. The 2 vehicles that we have requested this year, they are to replace a 2016 Explorer that has over 112,000 miles, that is currently sitting on roughly $4,000 or $5,000 worth of electric issues on it, as well as some maintenance issues. It currently does not run. It's also replacing a 2016 Charger that I believe has 113,000 miles on it. So looking at 10 years on a vehicle, 113,000 miles of rough mileage. One of the other things that we looked at when we looked at purchasing these 2 new vehicles, we just introduced one of our officers at 6'8", 360 pounds. He is currently in an Explorer that he has all the way back, the seat as far as he can go back, and still he feels like that Explorer. One of these vehicles is specifically so we can have a safe egress out of that vehicle in case something happens, so you can get in and out of that vehicle easier. The other vehicle is to replace the patrol lieutenant vehicle. It is going to be a F-150 at a lower
that
cost.
again.
The patrol lieutenant vehicle, that we currently do not have a vehicle for that position at this time.
Patrol, who?
The patrol lieutenant, yep,
Patrol lieutenant vehicle.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We currently do not have a vehicle set for that position right now. Like I said, we're short a few vehicles. That is an F-150, it's on the budget. That is built with specific to pull the hot dog trailer, to pull the Governor Highway Safety trailer, to pull the golf cart trailer when we had that. So, and also use it to transfer stuff back and forth to the range. So we're still operating on a level of vehicles below what we should have, and trying to be financially responsible in managing trading out the vehicles, at the same time trying to upkeep the vehicles we have.
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you for explaining that. But what I heard you say is you don't have enough officers and you don't have enough, you have more vehicles than you do officers, but then you also need more vehicles. What are we doing with the vehicles that we don't have enough officers for? That's just a question. Because we have police patrol vehicles
Yes, ma'am.
sitting, I guess, to the rear of the Winterville Square, the park, as well as other vehicles, right? So if those vehicles are sitting there, how are they being utilized? Or are they waiting for the more officers? How does that work? Because they're not being utilized, they're just sitting there. And my questions are questions for myself as well as citizens
Right.
who just see.
So what you see over there is we have an officer on light duty, his vehicle is over there. We have an officer who is out on FMLA, her vehicle is over there, and we have the two vehicles that are currently not functioning that are getting ready to be decommissioned. Those two vehicles are over there. So that's 4 out of the bunch that's over there right now. 3 of those vehicles that are sitting over there are going to go to the 3 new officers. So that's 7 of the 8 vehicles that you see over there. So then we have 1 vehicle as a spare, and then we're getting 2 new vehicles. So although it looks like a lot sitting over there in that parking lot, they're either allocated already or they're being decommissioned.
Thank you for explaining that, because it helps to clarify, like, a need for more vehicles. You got vehicles sitting there, and these are really just logical questions.
Yes, ma'am, I
So
understand.
thank you,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate that. And then my last question is, the multipurpose center. I know there was a workshop on April 18th, and that Mosley, construction is gonna come back to the town. But what do we have a freeze on any monies for the multipurpose center? How are we investing in getting a multipurpose center at now, over 21 years of discussing it in a growing town? The town is growing, but we need
Sure.
to accommodate that with a community center. We have the Boys and Girls Club, but children who don't have transportation would have, they can't get there, especially during summer months. So what do we do when we think about that? And that's just a question, because we're talking about the budget and monies, and things of that nature. And then also to tag, I still didn't get an answer with regards to a workshop on, I know you mentioned a few things, but we're into the millions of dollars on things. And I think when we talk about a workshop with policy, we need to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including expenses and just having a discussion about these things, so that I won't take up the whole 2 hours.
So with regard to the multipurpose center, there is nothing budgeted in the current budget to advance that project. I will say that that doesn't mean there aren't steps that the town council can take, or that the town can take to advance that project. I think the next step would be, now that phase one is complete, and council decided at that meeting to move forward with the next phase, probably what we would do is have some additional conversation with the engineers, find out what it would look like for like a complete design process and what that would cost the town, and then bring that back to the council to have further conversation about the specifics of the building and the design and things of that nature. So I think reaching out to the engineering firm, finding out exactly where they are with their schedule and when they could work something in with the town, bringing any kind of estimates or engineering costs back to the council to make y'all aware of what that is, so that y'all can make a decision on how you'd like to move forward.
Thank you, Assistant Town Manager Bowers. I honestly feel like we've had that conversation, like, it's been a conversation about architecture, and they coming back with stuff. We talked about that last year and the year before. So my thing is, when are they gonna come?
Well, those were general concepts, and those were approved by the council at those respective meetings when we talked about like the master plan and site-specific plan. And so we had some preliminary work that was done that gave us some estimates, just some ballpark estimates. But I believe we were at a situation where we wanted to get down into the specifics of what was going to be in the building. And so that would, when we start looking at the actual design of the building, that would be the next step.
Okay, and now we're talking about it, can we get some sort of, can you go back, somebody asked them to give us a tentative look or some kind of a sketch or something so that we can move forward, because to be honest, this has been long and drawn out. I know a multi-purpose center, we need a community center for the community, and it's just been long and drawn out. And again, the community needs to have their say in what they want. A full community public session, and I know we said that took place at the Watermelon Festival. That's not the community. That's people visiting the Watermelon Festival. We need community people who live here, who have children or elders or whomever, doesn't matter the economic or demographics, but for the community to say what they want. And that is a part of planning as well. And I don't think we ever had that slated. But that needs to be slated when we're talking about engineering and architecture and budgeting. We don't even know concretely what the community wants.
Sure. I think this was, I know you weren't able to attend the previous work session on that. Some of that was addressed in that meeting. I don't know if you were given a copy of the presentation or anything of that nature, but they did talk about how citizen input was included in that. Now, I understand your position may be different, and that's not to say there can't be additional input sessions in the future. I think that also came out of that meeting. So not having Ms. Parker here tonight, I don't want to speak on her behalf or give direction on something that she's been working on. But I do think we are at a point where we need to have those specific conversations with the engineer and give them specific direction. Now, the path at which that plays out is probably yet to be determined, and I think, when she gets back, we can have that conversation about what that looks like and provide that to the council.
Yes, thank you. That needs to be at the forefront. And when we talk about citizen input, it was standing outside with sticky notes. There was no building, there was no place in which the citizens specifically were invited publicly. Yes, it was advertised, or it was during the Watermelon Festival. There was no public meeting to come in, citizens, and speak to this. If so, I need for somebody to provide that to me, as well as how they did with the town hall. Did people sign in? How do you know how many people were from the town. So that is my question with that. And I want to tell you again, thank you. I have more questions, but I will just pause them for right now.
Okay.
We do have a request for workshops, and these workshops that we have will be for us to gather information on various topics. And we will be asking staff to get information for us for these different things. And we will set the agenda, and it will be a public meeting when we have these workshops on the topics given. Any other comments as far as our, agenda tonight is concerned?
Yes, I just got one question I want to ask. I'll wait till you finish.
Yes, sir, I'm listening.
How many new employees is in this budget this year?
No additional positions.
In none of the departments, right?
No, sir.
Okay. And what about, you said it's going to be, what, 2 vehicles? Besides, we're not talking about that for the public safety, but other than the public safety department, we got the fire department, it's fine.
No, those were the only two actual, that and the Polo Works was getting a new pickup truck. Those were the only two quote-unquote vehicles. Everything else is either equipment or types of apparatus.
Okay, so you said that the public work was getting one F.
Yeah, F-150.
F-150.
I'm not sure exactly what, was it F-150 or 250?
Okay, and then you said the fire department's going to get anything?
They're getting what's budgeted is the squad, the fire truck.
Fire truck.
The fire truck, and a compressor and air packs.
With regards to the fire department, we're getting the squad trucks, we'll have 2 fire trucks. Are we including, I know there was a master plan, is that coming later for staffing to actually get on the fire truck? How does that work? Because we can have the fire trucks, but we need a team, a fire team with the variety of.
And so this will not be an additional, it will be a replacement truck. Chief, you want to speak to that?
The master plan, we should be about 6 weeks out on the draft of that, and then we can, move forward however you see fit from that point.
To utilize monies for staffing.
Well, a whole array of things, the
Yeah.
whole, 5 to 10 years out, but staff and equipment facilities, kind of the whole spectrum of everything.
So we are awaiting the master plan
Yes,
to
ma'am.
move forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. And then lastly, I spoke Tuesday night with regards to overall, I know there's upgrades, there's repairs, there's different operations that the variety of the departments do each day. But I would like the term revitalization to stay at the forefront as well. There's a lot of neighborhoods that look contrasting to each other here in Winterville. And I would like for us, even maybe at a workshop, think about how do we revitalize neighborhoods that have become dilapidated, ran down, and primarily are in central Winterville. But when do we, as a town where we're growing and we're getting all of these new developments in, when do we invest in neighborhoods and areas that have been there? Do we talk about that, or how does that work? And I know people are gonna say, well, we don't have it in the budget, but there are ways of doing some things, even financing things, so there's a way of doing other things. I think if there's a will, there's a way.
I think historically, the town has used, community development block grants, but I think they're probably run through, USDA, and I don't know if we qualify for those anymore. I mean, clearly, we can look into investigating what grants might be available of similar type and nature, to, those types of block grants. I think that would take some research and some effort to try to identify what opportunities are out there and what they look like.
Thank you. So do I need to request that, like, do I need to make a motion for that? Do I need to,
No,
just
I mean,
speak with
I don't
you?
think so. I mean, I think I'll get with, Manager Parker when she gets back, and we'll develop a game plan
Okay.
to see. She's kind of worked with the home program as well, so she's a little more in tune with that component of the operation. But again, I don't wanna speak on her behalf without her being here, but I feel like that's something we can talk about and, at least working to identify potential, funding sources for similar types of programs.
The mayor would be a good source to. Any other discussion?
No, I was just gonna, to Councilman Moy's original question about staffing, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, there were 4.5 positions that had to be cut. So there was request for staff, but that was part of, we talked about the capital outlay and the physical and the equipment, but there were 4.5 staff positions that were cut from the budget.
That's correct.
Colin and the merit pay.
COLA was reduced to 3%, and the merit pay stayed the same.
Stayed the same.
Is the average
It was
between,
adjusted.
it was adjusted to the average of 1.25 to 2.25, sorry.
Say it again. It was.
It was adjusted to 1.25 to 2.25, so we, not knowing what each employee will get on their, their merit, we took the average of that, we took the average of the high and the low, and that's what we put in the budget.
Actually, it's,
So we
max is higher in the new budget than it was in the old budget. Max in the old budget was 2%,
Mhm.
even to in the old budget, but in the budget that we got tonight, budget 3, max is 2.25.
The max was at a flat.
I'm pulling it up, give me just
I
one
believe
second.
it was a flat, and so it's now down to 1.25 with a variable up to 2.25.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, well, it said an average of 2%, that's how it was presented, but it was modified to 1.25 to 2.25 this time.
And so with the merit pay at that range, in the last meeting, I had a question with regards to how do you all, what method is being utilized to evaluate? And I believe Councilman Moy asked this before. How do you, measure? How is it measurable? Where, do you have an evaluation method that is used as per se an employee getting 1.25 to 2.25? How is that justified? Where
Yes,
is
each department head will do an evaluation on their staff, for their respective supervisors, and then a recommendation will be made based on that employee's performance. If I misspeak, just speak up, but once that's done, it's submitted up to HR and is reviewed for completeness and thoroughness, and
Right, thank you. So, but are we privy, like, how do we know what the evaluation is? So it could be you showed up with a smile, or, how do we know? Are we just going by just good faith, or how do we know? Because this is coming out the general fund, right? And so they're getting 1.25 to 2.25, and 2.25 would be at the highest, but where is a sample of evaluation? Like, how do we, and these, I don't think they're odd questions, but how do we're getting ready to vote for it, or how do we know what the evaluation looks like? Do y'all have a sample? How does that
I'll
work?
say that's not typically something we provide with the budget document. I mean, but
Where could we get it? Like, when could it be provided? For, I'm in education. There's an evaluation scale, there's sample, like, you know, test scoring and, you know, helping to, you know, improve, teacher improve, like, what is that question shouldn't be like odd, like,
And also
voting
has-
on merit.
Has to do with the, I guess, the tiers, the employees, then the department heads, then the town manager, then the town council. So those tiers would be enacted there. Those tiers of supervision. And so that has a lot to do with the evaluation process.
And Ms. Fuller, and I do not recall the exact details, but I know Town Manager Parker shared with us last year and previously the process for those evaluations, and that you are involved, and there is a process. This is not new. It is something that is established, and there's a process in place, including the department heads who work with the individuals daily, and then it comes through you, Ms. Parker.
So there is some questions that we ask, or that is gathered from all the supervisors as far as the strengths, what they need to improve on. So there is a form that we have that we use for all the evaluations for part-time and full-time employees. And also what percent is going to depend on, you know, how well they do.
Thank you. So there is a form, there is a document that is
There's a Word
utilized.
document, yes, and I'll be glad to forward that to you
Thank
along
you.
with the percentages. Like, if it's a 1%, then, you know, they need work, up to a 5%, then, or in our case, a 2%, 2.2% was the highest that we could get last year.
Thank you so much. And I will be expecting it to actually look at something concrete as terms of merit, as opposed to just saying it, at least something we can look at and hoping that it's not 10 or 20 years old, that it's updated, because 21st century, we have technologies, and are they able to do this and that with, per their department. So hopefully it's like that. And if not, it can be updated since we're changing merit rates. Thank you.
Got all the questions? So I'll be back. It's Monday,
our next meeting will be Monday for the public hearing,
public hearing, Monday at what time?
6 o'clock.
So Monday evening, 6 o'clock. We invite all our citizens to come with their questions and their concerns, if they have any, about our budget. You will be able to speak. It is a public hearing. So you will be able to speak on a budget. If you would like to see our budget, is it online? This budget 3 is online?
Yes, it is online.
Our budget is online. Copies are in the lobby of Town Hall, and we do have one at the library too, don't we?
That's correct.
Okay, so there are 3 copies available for you to see. And if you have questions, you can ask them on Monday night, or you can email our town management team. And those of us on town council, of course, we're available. If there are no more questions or any other things, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adjourn. All ready for the vote? All in favor? None opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.